I cannot hear you.
Okay.
Can you say something again? I'm trying to see if my audio is right. You know what? I'm gonna sign out and
We're
sign back
live.
in
We're
because
live.
my audio is terrible. Yeah, my audio is terrible. Let me sign back in.
Greetings. Greetings, my villagers. How are you all today? Now, I know that's a loaded question, right? Brings me to an old saying, another day, another dollar. But I'm going to I'm going to modernize that a little bit and say another day less another dollar. I stopped at the gas station on my way to the studio just now. Almost blew my mind. You know, gas is up almost $5. Never mind then less another dollar. But borrowing lyrics from one of my favorite old songs took my last $2. Y'all remember the song by Johnny Taylor, right? No, you don't. But you see, continuing with the language from my generation, and to quote our dear ancestor, Brother Joe Madison, we bring it where the goats can get it. But good news is on the horizon. We have our guest today. He's been here before, and each time he brings what we need to hear. Not necessarily good news, but real news. Y'all know, here I tell you, I'm governed by the scripture. Hosea 4:6 that said, my people will perish for lack of knowledge. So here we are going to bring the knowledge. We don't want to perish. You know, talking of knowledge, speaking of knowledge, I'm preparing a documentary. Will be out very soon. It's dealing with three important concerns of our community. You know, the United Nations just recently, the General Assembly, led by the Canadian government, recently declared what I've been trying to convey for the last 2.5 years here, that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity. Now, my documentary deals with three very important elements of our community, you know, based on that assumption or that reality, actually. That is, was the gravest crime. Number one, I've been recently listening to politics these days. The debate over the elders who are still in office. Congressman Jim Claiborne of South Carolina, I think he's like 85, and Congresswoman Maxine Waters out of California. I think she's in her 80s. Now, I'm not speaking of their politics. I'm speaking of their age. Well, my documentary will be speaking about the necessity of maintaining the presence of elders, African American elders, that is, in the mix to stay there. See, we are different. While elders in other groups evolved sort of organically with their imperfection and all, we, the African American elders, have been so interrupted. But we carry the continuity of generational wounds that should not be broken, but serve as a lesson plan for our total deliverance. And number two, I'm suggesting that the African American community creates a different lexicon, not to replace, but to complement, one that speaks to our lived experiences. Because you see, we get mixed up sometimes trying to explain our actions through their other folks' lens. You know, slavery, for instance, certainly not the same for us as for anyone else. Our dear sister, Dr. Anna, refers to it as Ma'afa. a Kiswahili word meaning the worst. And there are other words. Hate, for instance, don't mean the same to us as to others, you know. And the number 3 part of my documentary, and maybe the most important, is the need for our experts, our specialists, to take our situation to another level, from study and diagnosis to treatment. We have not great people who have studied. All our great historians, Dr. John Henry Clark, and on and on and on, and diagnosis. We have Dr. DeGraw, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and many more. But we need treatment, because when you look at people like Clarence Thomas, Candace Owen, Kanye West, and even some of our well-heeled, well-intended people. Now, some black men became a little bit offended when our beloved former President Barack Obama presumably chastised them for blaming others for their shortfall. Well, now, he's been the president and has degrees, one from Harvard, but he's not an expert in, quote, Africanism. Same as he's not an expert in oncology, cardiology, or any other specialized entity. But see, we don't think of it that way. We've got to. That's why I want to put a name to it. It's a pathology that I have termed Africanism. Yeah. So the documentary will be coming out very soon, and I want you all to look forward to it. But now I'm going to thank my team. I'm going to thank Sheila Bird, my producer, Juanita, my advisor, Tony, who sends in these clippings that we see, and I'm so appreciative. Thank my promo crew, my little ones, Harlem and Chastity. And, of course, my engineer here, Norm. Thank you so much, Norm. I have a new segment, you all know. I have a new segment called The Book Review with the Reverend Clyde Dunnins. He's my co-host for today because my co-host, Rose Moore, bless her soul, I wanted to keep her in our prayers. She's out on medical leave. He's also, producing my documentary, as I said. And the other segments I have here, clippings of educational pieces, news from Africa. So we'll just kind of keep you all informed. That's what the whole idea is, my podcast is all about. And, of course, you all know me. I'm Ruby Williams Shivers, your unapologetic amateur looking for experts in Africanism. And you all have asked me a couple of times, a couple of people say, well, try to explain that more succinctly. And hopefully this documentary will do that. Because they tell me somewhere that you have to, before you can cure a thing, you got to name a thing. So we just got to really name what it is that we have been involved with over these 400 years, and particularly the first 200 years. There's never been anything done to anybody, anywhere, at any place that was done to us. So with that in mind, we certainly got to treat it differently. We got to treat it as a such that you would treat a disease, or that's why I coined the phrase African slave virus 401, which means that we got to put it in context. We got to put it where it is. As our brother, ancestor Dr. Brother Joe Madison would say, put it where the goats can get it. And that's how we got to see it. We have a problem. We have an injury. It wasn't just a crime. It was a crime, but it wasn't just a crime. It was a crime with an injury attached to it. And that's why you find some of us looking like Clarence Thomas. But we cannot point fingers. We just got to figure out how to treat these people and do something about it. My co-host, Rose Moore, as I said, is out today. So I'll be joined by my book review host, the Reverend Clyde Dunnins. He's at home, but he's zooming in with us. But now I want to bring on my guest, the Dr. Akil Kalfani. He's the director of African Essex County College. And he's been here before, so I'm not going to read a bio for him because most of us know him, and you all have asked me, bring him back, so you know him very well. Welcome, Dr. Kalfani. Welcome to the club here. Welcome to our podcast.
Yes, welcome. Welcome,
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank you.
California.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here as usual.
Yes. We don't have, I'm not, I said
Good.
to my co host, I don't need a whole lot of questions for him. I'm going to let him speak for what he wants to tell us, let us know about. What do you got on your mind today?
Well, we got a couple of things. There's so much going on in the world. First, I want to give just an update that we are at the Africana Institute this year. This is our 25th anniversary. We're celebrating 25 years. So this Thursday, we're having the Sankofa Royal celebration and dinner in Bloomfield. So we invite the people to come on out to that. That's going to be a fundraiser for the Africana Institute and getting some scholarships for students to study abroad. So that's what we're working on.
Oh, that's excellent. My word, I
Yeah, yeah.
expect to be there myself. You know, I'm looking
Wonderful,
so forward.
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm looking so forward to that.
And they can get more information at www.essex.edu/Sankofa25. I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, very good. Now, what would you say the purpose of the fundraiser
It's
specifically?
many institutions like mine, the Africana Institute or African Studies departments or programs. If you look around the country, a lot of them are disappearing, right?
Yeah.
And or are fledgling. And so we've been moving on strong and building to a better level for the. I've been a director for 20 years, and so this is 25 years in the making. But my tenure has been 20 years, and so that's just given me a great opportunity to be able to build, work with folks in the community, and nationally and internationally. So we've been doing a lot of things in that direction. Excuse me. So I want
Mm-hmm.
to share some of that information with you all today about just some of the things we've done. And then we've taken students abroad. We've gone to Ghana, South Africa, Cuba, and you really gotten a chance for student, staff, community to get an experience of the African diaspora history and culture,
Right.
and getting them, really entrenched in our foundation so that they can experience them on a different level. Because I think it makes a big difference between talking about Africa, talking about African people in other places, and actually being there.
Right.
So when we went to Cuba, folks, they got to see lots of African folks who they might didn't know was there, right? Because when
Mm-hmm.
you see Cubans here in New Jersey, you don't see as many Afro Cubans here as you might see when you're in Cuba. And then we just explored the history and spiritual African spiritual foundations in Cuba, so they got a chance to see and talk, go to some of those specific spiritual sites where they got a chance to see how they celebrate African spiritual traditional spirituality in Cuba. So those are some of the types of things we make available to students. And similar when I went to Ghana, to South Africa, those are all great things. And what we do is we provide scholarships for students to be able to go on those types of trips. So we're planning now to prepare a trip to Ghana in 27. So
Right.
some of the funding will help for students who want to go on that trip, and we'll provide some funding for them.
Right. Sounds great.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
Reverend
yeah.
Dennis, do you have a question there?
Yes,
When you do, just put your hands up. Let me know it because I'll keep going. You have a
no
question?
problem.
Hmm.
No problem. I'm just enjoying the dialogue. And if I have a question, I'll raise my hand.
Okay, you
Thank
don't
you.
have one right now? Okay, well, I was going
No,
to ask him about the continuation of continue his conversation around where he goes into Africa. Have you done the ancestral thing? What is your ancestral connection to Africa,
So
Reverend?
I look in the mirror every morning and I say, "Hey, look at that beautiful African man." I don't need to know. No, I don't need to do
Okay, all
DNA.
right. We did that at my church back last year. I was excited about it. Reverend, the Reverend, and he's not fairly, he's like 3 or 4 years in, but he's so Afrocentric. And one of the things we did is go into this ancestral, you know, thing with
is that
the,
Reverend Britt?
excuse me?
No, I thought you were trying to refer to Reverend Britt from
Oh, no, no,
Elizabeth.
no, no.
No.
But anyway,
Oh,
I
okay.
I learned that my ancestors run through Cameroon on my
Hmm.
paternal side and Nigeria on my maternal side. But it was just exciting that you can put a place to, or something when someone asks, well, where you from? I know coming up, particularly as a youngster, The only place we could identify was where we were. I'm a Floridian, so I was in Florida. But if I was
Yeah.
around other, races of kids, they could always say, where their ancestors were from, and it just bothered me to an extent that when I finally got to know some of the ancestor connection, it was really great. But I'm excited anytime I hear anything about you going to Africa, taking young people back and forth to Africa. What is generally their opinions about that?
Oh, they all said, that they all had beautiful experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and one sister, young sister in our South Africa trip, she said that you know, she made a video post, and her point was that everybody, we all got to go home to Africa, and so she just
Right.
had, and she didn't, she was a student who was here at Essex and had transferred to Rutgers. She actually had gotten a scholarship from Rutgers to go on a trip with us
Mm-hmm.
because she was an alumnus here. And so that was a beautiful experience.
Mm-hmm.
And other folks who travel with us, just touched in different ways. I think traveling abroad. I also run the Center for Global Education and Experiences. So we took students. We did a summer abroad in China. So we had 8 students and 8 faculty, and we had about 50 something Chinese students who were already there, and we had a whole summer session in China. So that was also
Okay.
another great experience.
Yeah, I can
Uh,
imagine.
So do you try to do a trip every year, or do
Not
you?
recently, since COVID, we haven't been back out. And we were supposed to go out this year, and then all this stuff started happening with immigration. So I postponed our trip to next year. So hopefully we'll have a little more calmness for next year so that we can take students without having to worry about getting back into the country. That was my concern
Right.
was
I
if I
understand
take
that.
students
That's.
out, am I going to have any challenges getting them back in? So
Right.
I
hopefully we,
understand. I can understand that in these days and times.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
And you
Uh,
spoke of,
And
also,
I'm sorry, go on.
also, I wanted to just share, in I've had a lot of travel to Africa myself recently. In December, I was in Africa 3 times. So
Okay.
I went to Algeria at the request of the Secretary of State for Algeria, and then I went to Togo for the Ninth Pan African Congress, and then I was in Ethiopia at the request of the African Union
right.
folks. And that was so now I sit on the African Union Committee of Experts on Reparations. I'm the
Amen.
only person in the U.S. who sits on that committee. So,
Great.
uh, we have a meeting coming up at at the beginning of June, and it's going to be virtual this time, but we have other ones that are going to be in person. So we're working on just a lot of things, pushing the agenda forward on reparations, and I'm striving to connect folks here with the folks on the continent, and other people are doing the same thing. We're all working together in this committee to bring this to fruition. And when I was in Algeria, I was invited to participate in uh, the conference on colonialism to
Bless you.
excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
the conference that declared colonialism as a crime against humanity, and that the Algerian people were pushing for reparations from the French and repair from the French because of their um, the heinous things that the French did in Algeria.
Right.
So about 1.3, I think it was, million people were killed by the French in the Algerian War. The French had nuclear weapons testing in France. I mean, in Algeria. So there's still uh, um, environmental dangers and hazards because of that. So they want all that stuff cleaned up, and they didn't do it in France; they did it in Africa. So these
Mm-hmm.
are kinds of some of the things that they were pushed. And then our group, I wasn't there, but our group, our executive committee, they call it a bureau, met with in Ghana before, well, right after we had our meeting in December, but before Ghana came, the president of Ghana came to the U.S. to make the push before the United Nations. So I was here when he came, and I was at the African Burial Ground when they had a ceremony there. I didn't go with them to the
Right.
UN, but then they went to the UN, and made a presentation and made that push to have African have enslavement and trafficking of African people uh, um, documented as the gravest crime against humanity. So
Right.
that's where that all well, that's where that all built up from. So
Mm-hmm.
the president of Ghana is what they call the champion, and he was designated the champion by the African Union. So him and his government are the ones who are pushing the main needle for reparations because that's their mandate. And
Wow.
then our mandate as a committee is to develop a working document on reparations and to start looking at what are the ways in which we would have reparations to actually be be fulfilled, right? Because we talk
Mm-hmm.
about it from lots of different angles. So we have a sister from CARICOM who's on there. She's a brilliant sister, Jane Sumer, and she is ambassador from St. Lucia, and then everybody else is from the continent. So in there, but there's some brilliant brothers and sisters there. Some are lawyers, some are educators. So then, and then all together we're developing this international way of looking at reparations.
Mm-hmm.
And then once this framework is done, we're gonna go around globally talking about it and having people to look at, get feedback. So I'm going to be pushing to get feedback from that next year. So one of the things that we're doing here as the Africana Institute, even though we're hello, even though
Mm-hmm.
we're working on our 25th anniversary, I'm at the same time working on next year's theme, which is going to be on reparations. So we're looking at reparations for the entire year for the Africana Institute next year. And I've already talked to some of the council generals from Africa who are going to partner with us, who will hopefully partner with us for some things, but also this organization that I'm a member of to have them come along. And then I'm going to talk with the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Togo, who I'm on another committee with them, and that was the committee for the follow up on the Ninth Pan African Congress to make sure that those recommendations are implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of international stuff I'm doing in addition to the stuff I do here locally.
I see. That's very impressive.
Yeah,
But
very
Dr.
interesting.
California,
Yeah.
you ever wonder why should this be a question for us, of all people, when the United Nations just recently, well, we knew this all along, that this is the worst catastrophe in the world, the atrocity against humanity. And why do we have to present ourselves like that all the time when other people have gotten reparation now? There's been reparation assigned to different other groups. And why is it so difficult for us to be considered? It's just mind boggling.
No, I mean, to me, it's not really mind-boggling because we have to look at and focus on anti-black animus, right? So that
Mm,
there's clearly a disdain for people of African descent,
mm-hmm,
and so then that disdain, that push, those challenges that people experience and think about, we have to put those in context, and
mm-hmm.
the context is that they excuse my cough. I got this cough I'm trying to get rid of.
That's what I thank you for
Uh,
coming on, because I know you had said you were going through a little something and you was going to try to come on, so we appreciate it because I know that
yes, yeah.
you're trying to get rid of
So
that cold. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I got to get rid of it before Thursday, before this
Right?
event. But I just think that we have we've been in a position where we've got to continue to push because other people are pushing back. I
Yeah.
mean, look what happened just the other day by the Supreme Court, right? That the rollback of the civil rights legislation, right? The
Voting
section
rights.
two of the voting rights
Right.
legislation that they're
Yeah.
they've literally rolled it back, and
Good
that they're
there.
allowing for the gerrymandering to happen for the benefit of Europeans.
Yeah.
But when Africans
Huge
tried to do the same
atrocity.
things, they voted. So we gotta let me get my tea.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it is. They are this are purposely and deliberately done. make no mistake about it, racism is not just a haphazard. It's been planned and it's been
Yes.
figured out. Just recently, I can't think of the guy's name now, but the one who spent his whole career studying, as a white guy, spent his whole career studying. He's part of this 2025 effort, but he spent his whole, he got his PhD on Black history and how, to undermine us, in other words. So my mom used to say, while we sleep, they are awake trying to study how to undermine us.
Mm.
And with that in
Wow.
mind, we just got to get on top of our game too. And we are. We're just being undermined so severely that sometimes we can't manage to stay on the game as we would, but it's not our fault. I always make that point. Whatever happened with us and to us and about us, and so I use the Clarence Thomases and point them out and say, as bad as they are, we got to figure out they wouldn't be doing that. What is that Maya Angelou said? If you knew better, you do better. So sometimes
Right.
we got to call it like it is and say we need treatment. We need tending to. We need something other than just being diagnosed. And we've been diagnosed now. And we've been studied seriously. But when we get to the point that we're going to insist on being treated for the condition that we've been in for these 200 years at least, plus the ongoing 200 to 400 years, we need to understand that clearly. Then we won't feel so bad about ourselves. Because many of us look at ourselves in disdain too. We are not
Yeah.
doing this and we're not doing that. Well, how can we when we've been so undermined? Still being undermined, you know? But
Yeah, well, we also have to include in that some of our own folks who assist in our own demise, right? So look at the Clarence Thomases of the world, right?
But they are
You
there
have
because they have not been treated. I try to make the point, as I said, Dr. Calpani, I'm doing a documentary. One of the things I would try to be bringing out is that until we have been diagnosed, we have been, but we've never had the treatment that you would give people who have gone through what we went through. I always sort of identify the same as I would identify any other major injury, disease, or whatever you want to call it. An oncologist study cancer, study how to get to the bottom. Cardiologist study the heart. Uh, we need I've named it already, Africanism. We need to make that, because it is a pathology that we are in. We need to study it, get our folks who have already researched it, the Dr. John Henry Clarks, the Dr. Jeffries, all those great experts, and the those who have found ways to define it, like Dr. DeGraw and the rest of them, Dr. Francis, but bring them together as the oncologists get together and study it from that perspective. Then that would be the treatment. And that's what I'm trying
I
to.
mean, I think we've done some of that actually. So if you take, for instance, Dr. Malefe Asante, he has a conference going on this week. He's done some remarkable job on his work on Africology.
Right.
He has like 60 books out.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Dr. Greg Carr, who's our
Yeah.
keynote speaker, he'll be here on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Is doing some amazing work
Mm-hmm.
with ASCAC, which is the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So there are these folks that have been doing
Oh,
doing
they're
this work. I
definitely.
mean,
But do you understand what I mean when I say we got to
no,
combine, put those things together? See, there's
but I'm saying
studies.
we do that. We come together and we have workshops, conferences, and
Mm-hmm.
places where we come to commune about how to implement some of these things.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
think that I think some of that stuff is happening. I just want to say that while that's happening, there
Mm-hmm.
are also still things going on to undermine those very
Exactly.
efforts at the
Sure.
same time. So the
Definitely.
strategy I would suggest is that we've got to have we've got to have we got to work at this like chess, right? So we
Yes.
have to have multiple strategies going simultaneously. And some of those strategies are offense and some of them are defense. Some of them are in anticipation of things that might happen. Some of them have to be in understanding what you call it. You have the name that you use. I would say that we've been infected by a virus of white supremacy,
Yeah.
and the virus of white supremacy is the thing that until we recognize that we're infected with this disease, that we continue to think that we have to be. We keep saying we've been brain dirtied, and we've been saying. I mean, we say we've been brainwashed. What I would say that washing means to clean,
Right.
and so even using the phrase to say brainwashed is symptomatic of our
Mm-hmm.
confusion,
Right.
because actually we've been brain dirtied, right? They've been putting dirt in, and we need to wash out all that
Watch out.
confusion and
Exactly.
misinformation.
Exactly. But
So
how do we? How I make the comparison because to a virus, the virus that came in that pandemic. When that came through, we all were just flabbergasted because none of us has seen that in the 200 years I've been here. I haven't seen it, and it just caught us all by surprise. But we knew right away, particularly when we heard the most powerful man in the entire world, the president of the United States, talking about injecting bleach. We knew then it took somebody other than a powerful person or an educated person. It took someone who has studied specifically the virus, the virologist, or whomever. So why don't we see ourselves as such? We got a whole lot of people who've done great things. We can name them by the dozen. But I'm saying those people now need to create a school, if you will, for lack of a better term. Just a university, somewhere where you could go and study together to come together as an oncologist. That's why I named it Africanism. I just threw that out there because I couldn't think of any. Africanism. But name it to a point where you can consider it the same as you was considering any other major disease that you had to study specifically, not separately. You will create institutions people respect when they know that you know. It takes more than just, many of the time we'll say, like I said about words, in my documentary, I'm trying to show we need to create words that will create a new lexicon for us. Because what means one thing to them don't mean the same thing to us. It's our lived experience. So when we're looking at
Mm.
the fact that we have our people here doing this, we have the Dr. Jeffries doing that, we have, but it's all our great people, Dr. DeGraw and the rest. But if they got together under an umbrella as a university of study, that would come to let us know we need it. See, I may not know that I don't have what it takes to explain the Clarence Thomas, and I don't. But I mean, there will be those folks who will say the same as when that virus came out. We did not, even with our very learned people, we didn't expect them to know we could be a doctor. I went to my primary physician when that happened. He said to me, just honestly, I'm not the expert. So he knew right away what it was that he knew and what he didn't know. He studied. He'd done all the study in the world and he practiced. He was a practitioner, but not for that virus. We need someone specifically to those folks that you just named to get together under an
but they
umbrella.
have.
No,
But
I'm
I'm
so,
saying to you that I'm saying that they have, and I've worked with them in
right.
those
I
circles,
understand that, but
and
I'm
they.
not talking about. I mean officially. I mean officially. Name it something.
That's
Name
what I'm
it
saying.
a
They've done it.
name.
It's been done officially.
Oh,
So
good. Well, that's
here's an
good.
example right here. Let me show you this book.
Mm-hmm.
This book is called. Hold on. Let me turn off my blur.
Mm-hmm.
This book was just recently came out.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Black Lexicon on Africology.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a book which Malefe Sante and a bunch of other folks worked on, Nod Dove. And basically, this is a book that pulls together the terminology that you're actually talking about. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a compendium of that very thing labeled lexicon,
Right.
so that
Okay.
they've developed the lexicon on that. And what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about is a think tank. So there's
Mm-hmm.
been several think tanks to address it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have a regular ongoing think tank like the RAND Corporation or one of these other European ones, but
Mm-hmm.
we do have folks work on it. And there's a sister in New York, Dr. Falou, who is developing a graduate school for
Mm-hmm.
Africana Studies. So
Mm-hmm.
so these things are being worked on. I want to give
Mm-hmm.
those people their credit about the things that are in process in
Right.
that. And this is another one here. I want to share this. This is on African methodology,
Yes.
having our own methods and theories.
Yes.
So these are things that folks are working on. I'm getting ready to do another one of these.
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to write a book on using the same format
Mm-hmm.
on one on African spirituality and another one on African theories.
Mm-hmm.
So these are things that are, I think that they are, and we need to share them
Mm.
and to create space to continue those dialogues. So when I was at the Ninth Pan African Congress, my point was that, excuse me, that
Mm-hmm.
we need to have lots of these conferences, lots of these think tanks and work groups, so that because there's almost 1.5 billion African people in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and so how do we address all of their issues and concerns? Is that we all come together, we talk about these things, and we come up with strategies for implementation. And
Right.
some of that work
Yeah.
is being done, and we have to continue to push on that.
Well, that's great because
Yes, and that would be
that's what I want to hear. Otherwise, I say you can't patent ideas, but I'm going to copyright some things if someone don't show me what you're just showing me now, where people have done this, come together. I don't mean separately either. I mean as a school of thought, as the same type of togetherness that you again. I keep naming the discipline, the pathologies of cancer. You know what the epidemiologists know, the oncologists don't involve. But the oncologists get together as a group. They study it. They're the group that's coming into New Jersey as I speak. They already have centers, cancer centers. But this is being built. It's going to be an extraordinary big uh, uh, concentration of those people who study under the oncology banner. All I'm saying is we got hold a lot of separate ones, but we need something like that where people will recognize that we know that it takes more than just one, two, or three of us knowing it, or 50 of us knowing it, but to come together to create something that you would call a name in order to be able to let us, the unqualified one, or the ones that don't study in that area, will know. Okay, there's a place I can go. I can get a dissertation around that. I can get this around that. I can get around the word Africanism. I just coined that one. But whatever it would be similar to oncology. It would be similar to epidemiology. It would be similar to cardiology. It would be a separate term that we can associate with, that will let us know that is we are being tended to. Because we have been diagnosed now, you're right, and we have been diagnosed, we have been, but in terms of tending to, we haven't been tended to in a serious way. But I'm looking so forward to that. So, Reverend Dunning, did you have any questions for
no.
our guest?
I was not really any
Well,
questions,
hold on
but
just a second. Let me
I
just
did
bring
want to
Reverend Dunning.
piggyback off.
Reverend Dunning, hold on just a
Yes,
second. Let me bring up my villagers for a minute. Norm, I just want to see who we
sure.
have
Take your time.
here and let them recognize that we are see them. Hello,
Sure.
villagers. Lloyd Sharvis, hello, and good afternoon, family. Rashida Johnson, we have Askia Muhammad, Robert Cabbage on deck, Sheila Bird, welcome Dr. California to the podcast, she said. Joy Jackson from California, good afternoon. Lloyd Sharvis, Shamir's on deck. Oh, good afternoon, Shamir. Well, we're so appreciative of you all because this is what we're here for. We try to bring you the information. You all know I said, I quote a scripture that said, my people will perish for lack of knowledge. And one of the things that I'm very conscious of, that we don't have the knowledge that we need in context. I mean, we have it separately. You know, we know what we know, and we blame each other for certain things that we shouldn't. But I always try to compare it. That's like when that virus came out, and I blame you for sneezing on me when the experts said, no, you don't. You use a mask. It takes people who have studied and can convey that kind of information to help us carry ourselves forward. I believe the same thing with us as African people. I don't think we might have the Clarence Thomas of the world and the Kanye Wests of the world, the Candace Owens of the world, if they understood that they were from a sickness. See, they think they know what they know. We like to use the word, I'm not monolithic. Well, in Africanness, we need to be a little bit more monolithic because we never had the opportunity to go and get some consensus on who we are, and what we need to do. So when we use the word we are not monolithic, it tells a lot about how we're thinking in 50,000 different directions, and that is not what it should be. We should be taught by this group I'm trying to form to say, no, this is what one does when they are affected by when they're affected by this Africanism, by 200 years of brainwashing, Eurocentric indoctrination, whatever you want to call it. But I'm so glad that we could bring our guests on. That's what we try to do at this podcast, to bring someone who can enlighten us, because that's what we need. Now, Dr. Calfani, you mentioned that you connected with the Cuban. I wanted to ask you about that. What you think about what's happening? What is happening in Cuba? I find that there's a lot of things going on, and our
Yeah. I
government is
mean,
threatening and all that.
yeah. I mean, the main thing is that the embargo that's been going on for many decades, and then most recently, Trump has escalated that embargo and tried to both bankrupt and really to annihilate the people in Cuba with no power and no access to fuel and resources. And so it's been, I think, detrimental and really, I think it's a crime against humanity. What's the way the U.S. has approached Cuba with no aggression towards the United States.
Right.
And with that, I did also just put in the chat this conference is called the Global Afrocentricity and Indaba on Theory and Practice, that's happening on May 16th and 17th in Philadelphia. So this is and it's the piece I put in there. It says this historic gathering is being convened by Malefi Asante and his institute, and it invites scholars, educators, practitioners, and students to the first global Afrocentricity conference. So here is
And
another
where will that be?
in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. Okay.
Yeah, if you click the link that's in the chat, it'll take you to where all the specifics for it.
Oh, great.
So I mean, I just think that that also speaks to the push to galvanize people of African descent. And if I wasn't organizing our event, then I would probably be there. However, I'll obviously will be at our event here, which is on Thursday. So it's just that there's a lot of synergy around African people coming together. That's why you had the Ninth Pan African Congress in Togo. There was over 1,000 people there from all over the world. You had this conference in Algeria. There was several hundred people there. And then you had another conference on reparations in Ghana, right? And then people just gathered in Switzerland, in Geneva, for the.
Great.
Say it again.
No, I said that's a great thing.
Yeah, so all of these things were happening simultaneously, and then there was one in Colombia. And the Colombia had another gathering, and all of these things building this momentum that's burgeoning all over the African world to come to build this thing that is unstoppable. So that we face continue to face white supremacy and people like the Uncle Toms of the world. Well, I said Uncle Tom, but I meant Clarence Thomases of the world. That's funny. That's a nice slip.
That was
I like
a
that one.
misnomer, because I understand
You
the
said
real
right.
Uncle Tom was a little bit different from Clarence Thomas. So
Yeah.
that's close.
However, the point being is that we have an opportunity for us to continue this global push for African voices and thoughts to be heard, for African theories, methods, solutions to be put forward. And so that's what I focus on is solutions. How do we develop solutions to our social problems, our social challenges?
Right.
And I think the way we do that is that we have to come together and make some decisions about things, and that we have to know that we're all not going to get what we want in the process. And so if we approach it from that angle, there's a great book. I think I shared it with you before, and it's called Mbongi, and
Mm-hmm.
which is an older African idea about uh, governance and solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have. I don't think democracy is necessarily the best answer, right? Because democracy has mostly been an illusion for the people who empower and control. They use the words the democracy, but they never execute that in terms of real terms. In real terms, it's about people who have money and power, particularly Europeans. If you think about, you said for refer back to the 200 or 400. I say we have to go all the way back to the 1500s when the Spanish set up their colony
Oh
in
yeah.
Florida. You're from
Mm-hmm.
Florida. That's before any of this other stuff. We can't
Right.
start with 1619. They
Mm-hmm.
were already here in the mid to early 1500s.
Right.
And so then that's the point from which we have to look at European incursion into African reality.
Right.
We have to start with Bartholomew Diaz,
Mm-hmm.
with Vasco da Gama.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were traveling the coast in Africa, setting up Tadaros all over the place, basically naming those spaces as their own, that is the beginning. But Africans have fought since that very time. So this is not just a story about victimhood; it's a story about an ongoing battle. And I
Right.
think we have to look at it that way. And once we look at it and approach it from an ongoing battle, then we give ourselves agency. We
Right.
give ourselves the ability to see ourselves as not just victims, but ones who are defending ourselves. So some people will say, "Well, Nat Turner," or they would look at him. They would label Nat Turner as a terrorist, when in fact Nat Turner was a freedom fighter.
Yes, very
So
much
who
so.
are the freedom fighters of today that they want to label terrorist, but in fact are fighting for the freedoms of themselves or for our people?
Yeah.
And we can't use other people's terms to
Exactly.
classify the people who are fighting for us. And we have to see, so because sometimes people who are fighting for us, we adopt the oppressor's terminology and call them
Exactly.
terrorists. And we
Exactly.
can't do, if we do that, then we lost before we started. We might as well
Yeah.
stop now.
That is so true. That is one of the things that I'm fighting for so severely, so seriously, and that we have to recognize that. And many of us, particularly our experts and specialists, as I phrase it, they know that. I may not know that. A million, well, how many? If there are 15 million of us in this country, maybe more. But if there's that many, maybe 14 million don't know that, and there 1 million do. That's what we got to get, that 1 million. The same as there are people who may know a little bit about treating the effect of cancer, but there's not oncologists that would treat stage 4. They you have to really know what you know. That's why we got to really have our people understand our situation is similar. That's not to deny any of the greatness that we have amongst us, but put them together for lack of a better reasoning, in an institution, as somewhere where they're studying it, so we know we can go there and get cured, get treatment for what ails us. Because there are things that ails us. We didn't just come here for. I tell people this. I'm a curious person. I often quote, what's his name, Albert Einstein, who said, "I'm not so smart, I'm just curious." Well, we know he was smart. I'm honestly not so smart. I'm just curious. Always have been. So when I hear something, when I see that we said 400 years ago, we came from people who built the pyramids, we came from people who created science or whatever, I wonder then what happened within those 400 years. Since I can't articulate it or can't convey it as it should be, I want people who know it, you all, the experts, the specialists who have
Oh,
studied it
I mean, I'm
seriously.
gonna go back to the point of that we have documented. I mean, part of that
Not
is that it was
document.
illegal.
I'm sorry. I
It
don't
was
want to
it was
interrupt you, babe. I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to be very clear. 'Cause I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. I don't mean the knowledge. I know we have the knowledge. There's so many. You have someone coming Thursday. I can't wait to see Dr. Jeffries. There's no much more knowledge than you can contain in that. But I mean, us to bring that. I keep making the analogy of the oncologist. They have knowledge. They have knowledge outside of oncology, but that is their specialty. So when they specialize in that, they bring it into a place not here, there, otherwise. They bring it to a place. And that's what we got to do. We got to bring what we know to a place of study that I may be able to go and study it, get a dissertation
You
from it, do
can,
it.
if you go to the MKA Institute in Philadelphia, that's a
Mm-hmm.
place that exists that Malefe Asante created.
Mm-hmm.
It's an African institution that has nothing to do with the university,
Mm-hmm.
and they do exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. Oh, that's what I want
That's
to do.
what it is. That's what
Yeah.
they do,
Yeah, well, that's
and
what we
they are the
need.
ones organizing this conference.
That's
And
what
then
we
there's a
need.
And
sister working with them.
are these institutions actually being affected by the attempted demolition of Black history in this country?
Say that again.
Has these institutions been affected by some of the executive decisions
No,
that have been
well,
made to abolish
yeah.
programs and institutions that teach African studies and
Yeah, I
history?
mean, this hasn't because it's an independent
Yeah,
private
it should
African
be independent.
institution.
Right. That's
So
what I'm
he's independent from them. So there's no way that they could,
Right.
right? So it's
Right.
about African people funding African people's scholarship.
Right. Right.
So there's several of them. There's another one called the Diop Institute. They have a Diop conference every year.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's ASCAC. They have a conference every year. They have nothing to do with the government, and they're pulling people together to study and talk
That's
about and develop solutions to the problems. They've actually even developed books that address these issues. And
mm-hmm.
so I want us to just to give credit to the work that's actually being done to not just document it,
Right.
but have already begun developing solutions and implementing
Right.
things along that
Excellent.
way.
Yeah, that's what I need. That's
And
what we need to hear. But we in the public need to hear those things because I've
Well, that's why I'm
delved,
sharing them here on
and
your
that's a
show.
great thing. That's why I have you. That's why I bring people like you on my podcast. I tell everybody it's deliberate and intentional who I bring on here because I know they have things to tell us. They have things to open our eyes to. I, I'm just very pleased to hear that because that is what we need on
right.
a broad scale, but even at the smaller end because we can't do always what other folks can do. But to the extent that we are doing it, we are making known that we know what we went through was just not the regular definition of slavery. It was not the definition of slavery because if it were what we went through for at least for the 200 years over here, it could not be called, it was chattel slavery, but it should be called even what Dr. Anna refers to as ma'afa, a Kiswahili word, meaning that we take it out of their definition, put it into something that we can appreciate. Well, again, I do want to ask you, give us more information on the Sankofa affair that people might be interested in if it's still tickets are left
Oh
available.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they definitely are welcome to come. I mean, that event is Thursday, this Thursday, at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 11
Mm-hmm.
in Bloomfield, New Jersey, and we invite you all to come and join us. The website is www.essex.edu/Sankofa25. And that event, it's amazing because we're going to have, excuse me, we're going to honor Dr. Rosalind Jeffries.
Mm-hmm.
So she's one of our
Great lady.
honorees.
Yep.
Uh, Dr. Buster Soares, he's
Yes.
one of our honorees.
A former
Craig,
pastor. Mm-hmm.
yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
Craig Drinkard, who is runs the Victoria Foundation, and a list of others. And then we're going to have African dance, drumming. We're going to have a jazz band. We're going to have all kinds of African culture, African fashion show,
Wow. That sounds
and
like
yeah, yeah, it's going to
a
be
big event.
amazing. And then of course that's all going to be topped off with a amazing speech by Dr. Greg Carr,
Yes.
who is has this show class with Carr,
I
and he does a
I
bunch of
listen
other
to it
stuff.
every day.
Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So
Yes.
he has really really amazing, beautiful insights and analysis of the world in which we live. So we really look forward to him, his participation, and using that as a foundation for us to think differently and to do some of the things you're talking about. So
Right.
that's kind of the culmination of this event.
Right.
Great.
Excellent.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I listened to what is it, Series 126 every day, and I advise my people to listen, to turn away from wherever you listen, CNN or whatever. Turn to the Black News because you get information that you wouldn't get otherwise, and
Right.
particularly with with the series 126, Dr. Carr and the rest of them, Karen Hughes. Um, they bring you
Hunter, Aaron
information
Hunter.
that you need to hear, that you need to know to move your life in the direction that we need it to be led in. I was going to ask you, or you last you talked about, not last you talked about, but you did tell me about your son had written a book. What?
Yes, yes, he
Yes.
did.
Okay, give us some info on
So
that
he
because I
has
would like to have him on.
maybe we should. Yeah, maybe we'll. I'll get Sheila information. Maybe he can come
Okay,
on and talk about it. He has an
definitely.
amazing book called "What the FKV," and he
Mm-hmm.
has this whole process where he's looking at how to heal from some of the traumas. So he developed a whole solution
Okay.
for some of that. So he definitely would be a great person to have on here to talk about it.
Well, we certainly would
That's
like to have
great.
him on.
Yeah.
And in addition, Reverend Dunnage, we have this youth segment on called
Mhm.
Williams Cubalon Academy of Plainfield. What we did is a little homeschooling, and so we have them come on once a month, the last Monday of each month. And he's a young man. We have them. Always want to introduce them to young people who are doing things that they can aspire to.
Oh, yeah.
We teaching them their
Yeah, I
history. At least
watched
they
that.
get the wrong
I've seen
history.
that show.
Excuse
Yeah,
me.
Yeah.
I'm
my son is he's a high school teacher here in Newark.
okay.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
And how we need black young men teaching in our school system. My grandson is in North Carolina. And he just got a job in the school system. I said, well, praise the Lord, because we need young black men over our uh, students. But yeah, I definitely
Yeah,
want to have him on because, like I say, the little school we have here, what we're trying to do is teach them their history before they leave. And I would suggest to black parents throughout the uh, country, throughout the diaspora, those of you who not, because a lot of them are, to just if you have nothing, just bring them into the house, and I grab my grands and my nephews and things, group of them, and we have them come over every once a week. Miss Rose is their instructor, and she teaches them the history that they bring to us once a month, the last Monday of the month, to explain what they know. Least they won't be fooled by. It started around the same time Governor, what's his name in Florida, that DeSantis, I think his name is. He made that stupid statement about we came over here, they brought us over here to teach us stuff. I knew then it was time for us to get our young people to know their history, that they won't be, fooled by this nonsense. So that's how that got started. And I suggest to our black parents everywhere, you get your kids, 1, 2, or 3, however many, once a week, teaching them their history, that they'll be fully aware and confident and comfortable in their own skins. And Norm, I'm going to ask you to bring up my villagers once more time, and then we're going to. Okay, I'm so appreciative again of your checking in. It means so much because it tells us that at least we are bringing something worthwhile. At least we perish for lack of the information we need. Okay, we appreciate Dr. Calfani, you being here. And I certainly
Yes.
going to
Thank you,
reach
Dr.
out to your
Cameron.
son for him to come on. And I will definitely see
Yes.
you on Thursday at the great celebration that we're having. Is there anything else you would
wonderful,
like to say
wonderful.
before we tune off?
No, I just say, oh well, actually, no. There's one thing. Tomorrow is voting day.
Okay.
I tell everybody to
Okay.
go out and get out and vote.
Right.
Tuesday is there's lots of municipal elections going on tomorrow, Newark and elsewhere. So get out and vote.
I don't want to hear, but I don't do politics. So politics are certainly doing us right now. So we know that we need to get in the, get there and make our vote count, make our voices heard.
Yes.
For you, my villagers, I appreciate you, love you. Y'all take care.
Good night.
Peace and blessings.